Thank you very much. It's fantastic to be back here at Western. London and Western is really a bit of a second home for me. I spent 7 years at Western, which were all terrific. This room wasn't really one of the best memories I've had. I remember getting completely destroyed in the moot that I somewhat butchered in here, but needless to say, it is great being back here. It's funny as I'm kind of driving up to the campus, how the memories flood back, and you kind of hear that, and how this kind of period of your life, you build so many of those memories, and they were as I'm, driving along Oxford and up through the campus, and some of the buildings have changed, but some of them stay the same, and it causes you, it gives you time to reflect and be thankful, and I'm just so thankful every minute I'm on campus that I chose not to go to Queen's. So. Especially good this year with the Mustangs being undefeated in football. Any football players in the room? No? Okay. Well, I'm a huge fan and continue to follow them, so that's great this time of year. I was going to try to make one of the bad speech jokes related to the U.S. Budget crisis, but I'm just in a Google search learned that they have reached a deal, so that is no longer relevant, so I've removed it from the program. Whenever I speak at a university, it's a really great opportunity for me. It's a bit of a deal, really. You guys might get the short end of the stick on that deal because all you get out of it is listening to me, but what I get is an ability to listen to you and feed off your ideas and your energy and your enthusiasm, and there's so much that you have to offer at this point in your career, is more so than I think you even appreciate. So I really look forward to getting into the Q&A and kind of talking a little bit about how you see some of the things I've talked about. So please don't hesitate. One thing I would like to do and to encourage you to do is my Twitter address is at CFL Mike Copeland. And if you have any questions, feel free to send them to me via Twitter, and if we can get any during the Q&A, we will do that. I know there's going to be another mechanism to talk about, to have some questions. It's also a shameless attempt for me to get some more followers, so please follow me. And I'll know how many of you did, because I know how many I came in with. So what we wanted to do today is just talk a little bit about my experience in sports. And I think the first question that really comes up whenever I talk to any groups, but particularly groups on campus, is why do I work in sports? And this comes from all different levels. And really, there's two reasons. And it's a great question, but there's two reasons. The first reason I work in sports is because sports matters. It matters to me, and it matters to the world around me. I can best illustrate this through a few stories. One quick one. A few weeks ago, I found that I had a business trip planned, and oftentimes in the fall, with our football season, I will go away, and usually it's around some football games, so the trips aren't really much to complain about. But in this particular weekend, my trip was canceled at the last minute, so I found I didn't have to go away. As it turned out, my wife had my two young daughters. They had a trip planned themselves, so they were out of the house. So for the first time in 6 years, I had the house to myself, which is, as you might appreciate, unbelievable. So, I could do anything I wanted. And what I ended up doing was watching sports. I watched the Mustangs that weekend. I watched my beloved Michigan Wolverines. I watched my even more beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. And of course, I watched all 4 of our games that weekend. And it just kind of shows you that sports matters. People choose sports when they can, and I'm certainly among them. If I'm in the schoolyard talking to parents, other parents of kids in my kids' class, they all want to talk about my job. And nobody really wants to talk about their jobs. I try to steer the conversation back to them, so I'm kind of not hogging everything, but it eventually comes back to me. People are interested, and there's enthusiasm. It's very genuine. That didn't happen at other stages of my career, and it's sort of rewarding and motivating when you have people interested in what you're doing, and so sports matters. And people are engaged and they care, and Another example is when I first started with the CFL, amongst the kind of variety of functions that I'm involved in, one was on-field discipline. We had a conversation earlier about some disciplinary issues with a few of you. This was a particularly difficult decision to make. So there was an on-field play, and we had to determine whether to fine and or suspend or do nothing with this player. And what we generally do is get in a room and hash out all the facts and make a determination. And in this one, we decided to suspend the player. We issued a press release, and then, the day was over. So I got in my car, traveled home through Toronto traffic, and that night sat down to watch the game. And we had a game that night. So I sat down and turned on TSN, and I was sitting with my wife. And in the first quarter, they introduced, the TSN poll, the question for the game. Well, the question was, did the CFL get it right by suspending this player? And in real time, there was a ticker with, yes and no, kind of balancing between, whether we got the decision right or wrong. And I'm sitting back and, I'm only a few months removed from my previous job, and I think this is unbelievable. I'm getting real-time national feedback on the decision I made at work in my office 4 hours ago. This doesn't happen in other jobs. And it's really, I always remember that. It's really motivating when you're sitting in the office working to know there's people very, very engaged and interested in the things you're doing. Sports does that. People are engaged. So that's a few things that, why sports matters. But, there's another story that perhaps brings it home a little bit better. When we have the Grey Cup weekend and the Grey Cup game, and I've failed to introduce the beautiful Grey Cup here, and I hope all of you will get a picture and tweet it out, and it's best trophy in sports. When we do the Grey Cup, we have a commissioner's brunch before the game. So a few hours before the game, we have dignitaries there, the Prime Minister's there, the Governor General's there. All the provincial premiers are there, corporate leaders, all of our partners. So it's it's not that stuffy, it's a pretty fun event. And then everybody kind of leads into the game. And generally, as we do this, on the way out, you kind of give people little gifts and just kind of small stuff. On this particular day, I was walking out with a few of my colleagues. Matt Maychek up at the back, who's our Vice President of Communications, was one of them. They gave us these little foam footballs. So I was walking out, and we were going down to the game. This particular game was in Montreal. So as we're kind of walking to the stadium, as you can imagine, I've got a lot of footballs, and what I generally try to do is just kind of give it away to somebody. So I saw a family ahead, a mother, father, and 2 young kids, and I went up to the little boy and I kind of knelt down and I gave him the football. He had a little Alouettes jersey on, kind of past his knees, and he looked at me and his eyes lit up. Greatest thing in the world. And to me, it was, that's such a rewarding feeling that, you have the power to kind of bring that to people. So kind of bringing emotion and happiness and bonding. So that was great. The story stopped there, but the story didn't stop there. Kept walking. And the mom walked up and tapped me on the shoulder. And the kids and the dad were in the back. And she said, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for doing this. And I said, oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. I hope he enjoys it. And I hope the 2 kids can, wrestle with the football. And she said, no, not the football. Thank you for doing this. Everything this weekend, everything with this game. She looked at me, she said, my son has cancer. And he's just come through chemotherapy. And the doctor said they didn't know if he was going to make it. So, you're kind of set back. You're thinking, wow. So the doctor said he had to be strong through this process. So we went, my husband and I, and looked at him and said, if you get through this, if you're strong, you can have anything you want. Anything you want. So he looked at them and said, I want to go to the Grey Cup. So, sports matters. And it mattered to that family. So, you know, I'm not curing disease, I'm not saving the rainforest, but I feel I'm making an impact. And that's a very rewarding thing to do. And that's something that I value in this job. And sports, and particularly the CFL, brings communities together. You know, it brings the country together, and that's something we pride ourselves on. And I think you'll see when I show you this video in a little bit, you'll see exactly what I mean in that regard. Still, you know, when I decided to take this job, and I joined the league in 2006, and I had a background in law and in business consulting and a little bit in industry, as mentioned. The CFL was a little bit of a crazy place. People looked at me and said, what are you doing? Why do you want to go there? And I have to, you know, to be honest, it was a bit of a well-earned reputation. You know, we had franchise failures in Hamilton and Toronto. The board was renowned for infighting. It had lost its way a little bit. And I think some of the administration that was there when I came in had really done a good job of starting to bring it back, but it was still a little bit lost. And so people said, what are you doing? Like, why would you want to do that? But on the other hand, I looked at it and I saw an opportunity. You know, I looked at this fantastic brand, this fantastic history. I still looked at the people in the stands that were cheering and loving what was being brought to them and saying, you know, I want to be part of that, and I think I can make an impact. I think if I can look around and take what I've learned from other jobs I've done, places in my career, I think I can apply that and really make a difference. And you know, especially when I draw on all of the, you know, the different things that I've been through, when I speak to students, generally I say is law school taught me how to think. So it teaches you focus and discipline and rigor and analytics, and I will tell anybody that asks me, if you can afford it, get a law degree. And I truly believe in that. I've found that it's distinguished me and other lawyers that I'm involved with in how you approach problems and the perspective you bring. So, you know, law taught me how to think. Business school, which I did here at Ivy, it really taught me what to think about. So it showed me the context within which business decisions are made, how to build relationships, develop strategies, how to be creative and innovative in what you do. I'm not sure what undergrad taught me. I think most of my lessons were at the SEEPs, but we'll leave that perhaps for the question period. But you know, and then my career, kind of post-school, really taught me about relationships and diplomacy and politics and you know, unique approaches to solving problems. And as I was thinking about this, you know, and the theme being, you know, you collect experiences as you go through life, and especially as you go through academics and you go through your career, and it's how you take those and shape them into a powerful proposition that's going to help you to succeed. And I was reading The Economist last week, and I came across an article that was just right on point. The title of the article was Channel Change: What Newspapers Can Learn from Television. It revolved around the purchase of the Washington Post by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and the unconventional decision by Rupert Murdoch to hire a television executive, Mike Darcy, who was at Sky TV in Britain, to head up his newspaper business. So I just want to read you a paragraph from that article. It said, newspapers need the fresh thinking outsiders can provide. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, an e-commerce giant, will no doubt shake up the Washington Post, which he recently bought with his own money. Mr. Darcy, a tough New Zealander, does not have Mr. Murdoch's sentimental attachment to newspapers. If you keep saying newspaper, there's a risk you constrain your thinking, Mr. Darcy says. We distribute our branded proposition in several ways, one of which is on paper. Mike Darcy was thinking outside the box, at least as far as the newspaper establishment was concerned. And years ago, I also saw how sports properties were catching on to this. If you think of Manchester United, think of a soccer team. I think of a brand company. Manchester United makes the majority of their revenues from international sources, licensing, television, and sponsorship revenue. If you think of MLSE, well, I won't ask you what you think about MLSE, but MLSE is a media company. They're a real estate company. They're a restaurateur. You know, they were thinking about sports differently. And they're defining their business and opportunities much more broadly and challenging themselves to think bigger, much bigger. And I thought, if I can take that and apply it to the CFL, challenge the accepted way of doing things, I can make a difference. And I was right. The first step in that process was to look at who we were and to reposition our brand and properly communicate to Canadians the strength that existed within the CFL, and to loudly and proudly communicate what the CFL means. And we captured it in this brand video, and I'd just like to run it so you can see what I mean.
This is a league of A's and BCs. It's green and red and gold and black and blue. This is a league with 2 official languages and many unofficial languages. It's East versus West, Prairie versus City, Wheat versus Iron, Latte versus Tim's. Love versus hate. It's 110 yards long. "65 yards wide, over 100 years old, and born yesterday. It's a league of ice, of fog, of mud and wind. And for one Sunday in November, it's the nation's glue. This is a league of fast and crush, where there is no safety in the sideline. And everything can change in a blink. This is a league where superstars are extraordinary and ordinary at the same time, where you can reach out and love a running back, and they love you in return. This is a league of mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, and your 42 new adopted brothers. It's a league where you do more than cheer. You belong to the Eskies, the Tabbies, the Owls, Bombers, Copeland, Stamps, Riders, and Leos. This is a league as diverse as a country, a league of Jacksons and Kwongs, Johnsons and Moscas, Verschavels, Campbells, and Conakers, a league of Stiegels, Zambiazis, O'Shea's, and Haji Razulis. This is his league. His league. His league and his league. Her league. Her league. Their league and their league. It's my league. And it's your league. This is our league.
First time we showed that video was, one of them was to the Players Association at their annual meeting. So a bunch of, 250 to 350 pound guys. And I looked over on the side of it and there was a guy crying in the corner. So you kind of hit the mark when you can do that. This stirred Canadians in new ways. We were trying to build the respect back in the league and communicating what we felt were the best parts of this league. And with this momentum, we started focusing on our fundamentals. With a new salary cap system, and a new collective bargaining agreement with our players to help control our costs, with a new broadcast relationship, TSN, to showcase the great game we have in new and exciting ways, with a new drug policy, protect the safety of our players and rebuild the integrity in the game, and a league-wide internal commitment to professionalism in everything we do. And once we addressed the foundation and built a platform on which our clubs could succeed and thrive, we also started to build. We focused on digital media and defining our product differently, beyond simply the on-field product, to delivering content in new ways and creating new ways for fans to interact with the CFL. We built strong new sponsorships built on a new vision of the future. We're having a new team in Ottawa starting next year, expansion. And the largest single-day party in the history of the country, the 100th Grey Cup, which we celebrated last year to great success. And as we celebrated that, looking at doing it in new ways. So one of the things we did is we thought, what's the best way to capture the essence of the CFL at that time? And we thought, well, it's the origins in the country, and you really are looking back 100 years. And so we looked at the railroads. We did a national train tour, and we brought the Grey Cup on a train to 100 communities across Canada. And as we were saying, as we were walking into the room, the best part of that whole process was looking the expressions on the people's faces when they got up and close to the Grey Cup. So, we started to build the business, and 7 years later, I can say the league has never been stronger. We're perceived, and we truly are united and progressive. Where there was a time where there was some factions and divisiveness and an inability to have things done, we're now working together. We're aligned, we're disciplined, our teams are sharing best practices, we're moving forward together. Our clubs like to say we compete on the field, but we're partners off the field. And you can make a lot of progress if you can develop that type of culture. As mentioned, we're expanding. So to 9 teams next year. We return to the nation's capital with the Ottawa Red Blacks. It is going to be absolutely off the charts. The team they're so well organized. They think about things the right way. When you see the branding and everything behind it, the brand positioning, the uniforms, they're slick. It's going to be great. And the real estate development that's down there is really going to be one of the best places in the country to see a game. And we're also not stopping there. So we're actively looking to adding a 10th team, and we're focusing on Atlantic Canada, and hopefully we'll have some news on that one day. We're proud of our traditions. And as you can see, this is a lot about tradition, but we're not stuck in the past. Brand new stadium in Hamilton next year. Ottawa building a brand new stadium as part of their return to the league. We have a new stadium this year in Winnipeg, which is spectacular, and there'll be a new stadium in Regina in 2017. So there's over $1 billion in stadium development projects going on in the league right now. And next year, I'm not sure if any of you saw the BC Lions third or alternate jerseys this year. but we're going to be launching league-wide new alternate uniforms next year, which are going to be absolutely spectacular, like things you haven't seen before. Certainly in our league, think Oregon Ducks, and it's going to be great. We're the #1 summer sports broadcast property in Canada by a lot. Bigger than Major League Baseball, bigger than Major League Soccer. In the fall, we only trail behind hockey. We're much bigger than basketball. We have over 2 million people to watch our games every weekend. This success, kind of building the brand, building how we operate, developing new revenue streams, giving our clubs a chance to be successful, has brought a lot more fans back into the fold. And they're excited about it. And we've translated this into a new comprehensive television agreement with TSN, which will renew our existing relationship, and we have a multi-year deal with them beginning next year. This will it's very beneficial for us in many ways. It's going to serve to continue to strengthen the foundation and provide us for even more stability and growth. And I'm happy to say that I was very much involved in that. But despite all the successes, and it's not fair to me come here and just talk about all the successes, we still have some challenges, we still have some work to do. For anyone who here is from from Southern Ontario. So as you will know, the CFL and the Argonauts brand is not always top of mind in Southern Ontario. It under-indexes to what you would see in other cities across the country. If you go out west, the CFL is front page of the sports section, 6 out of 7 days of the week. We need that to happen in Toronto. It was the case in Toronto back in the 60s and 70s. There's a huge core of people. I mean, the sheer number of fans, Toronto has, and Hamilton, the most fans, but relative to the size of the population, they're under-indexed. So we have some work to do. And we've been working on that. Part of it is the brand, part of it is the success of the teams, part of it's the stadium. But we need to continue, and I think you're going to see, well, I know you're going to see over the next few years, a considerable increase in the marketing communications and the brand development efforts that we focus on Southern Ontario. But we are having some success. Our television ratings in Southern Ontario for games that Toronto and Hamilton participate in are up 50% versus 2011 and 20% year over year. So, it's moving in the right direction. We think it's only going to increase. The other thing that all sports leagues are focused on right now, and we certainly are focused on, is the in-game experience. The CFL is a gate-driven league. Unlike the other professional leagues, and even NFL kind of leading the pack, we are not dominated by television revenue. 2/3 of our revenues come from ticket sales. So it's important for us to get fans in the stands and to monetize them there when we do. You look at technology and how comfortable it is to be at home and watch a game at home, and you've heard a lot about second screen and people interacting with the game and getting real-time information, fantasy leagues, other ways to engage in the game in new ways. We can't perceive that as a threat, or only as a threat. You look at it as a risk, but I think you need to look at it as an opportunity. It's a choice you make when you approach problems. You can either be afraid of them or you can try and embrace them and make them your own advantage. So we're looking at using technology to our advantage in the stadium and doing other things in the stadium that make you want to be there more so than any place else. And I think what you're going to find is that people love sports and continue to go to sports because we're generally communal. We like doing things together. There's a feeling you get when you're in a stadium packed with people, and the excitement that surrounds it, and what we need to do is amp that up. Again, all sports leagues are grappling with this. I think that we're going to be at the head of the curve on that one. And we need to continue our relentless pursuit on player health and safety issues. Most, if not all of you, are likely aware of the concussion situation that's been happening in sports, and primarily in football and hockey, but most certainly it's not limited to those two sports. The NFL settlement that came out several weeks ago, and the sheer magnitude of that had a lot of attention. You see players out in hockey. I mean, in Canada, hockey really was the focus of the concussion issue when Sidney Crosby went down. Sure that has our attention, but we feel that we have been doing the right thing in terms of concussions. We brought in the internationally recognized concussion protocols in 2009, before the NFL. We have team doctors and our therapists that meet multiple times a year to discuss health and safety issues. What we're focused on is really three things. It's education and awareness for our players and the coaches about how to play safe. It's about rules and regulations to make the game as safe as it can be, putting in rules against targeting the head, making sure that the existing rules within the rule book are well known. And thirdly, it's looking at discipline. So how do we use discipline to deter behavior that's contributing to the problem? And looking what's happening in other organizations. I mean, the NFL has done some really great things, and we're constantly in communication with what they do. Really great people there, great people at the NHL, and we're constantly talking to each other to make sure that, as the community of sport develops, we have to grapple with this problem because it's here now, and as it should be. It's an important one. It's important not only for the current players we have on the field, but also to help us grow the game, because our future is really dependent on a thriving, growing Canadian game. And another opportunity for us, and one we need to focus on, is continuing to look at our brand. What we did with the This Is Our League campaign was incredibly successful and served our purpose at that time, but we've grown beyond that. You don't want to get complacent. That was 6 years ago that came out. It's time for us to think about who we are now and better communicate that. So what is the modern CFL? And it's about excitement, and it's about energy, and it's about our players. And so you'll see in our communications coming forward, how do we capture that and how do we best communicate that for the next generation of CFL fans? When I reflect back on my last 7 years with the CFL, I'm very proud of being part of an incredible period of positive change. I like to call it a renaissance, and I don't think that it's inappropriate to refer to it as that. The league is incredibly strong and has an incredibly bright future. At the heart of it is pride. I know that this league matters to Canadians, and I believe that I've mattered to the league, which is a very rewarding feeling. I wanted just to end this portion of it before we get into the questions with a really great quote on leadership. It's from a management guru named John Maxwell. And he said, "Leadership is not about titles, positions, or flowcharts. It is about one life influencing others." Sports is a great way to ensure that your life influences others. And with creativity and vision, you can have a tremendous impact. So the CFL has given me that opportunity, and it continues to do so, and I hope it will for you too. So before we get to some questions, one of the privileges that I have of working in sports, another benefit, is I get to run a sizzle reel that you don't get to do in a lot of other industries. So why don't we run this, and then perhaps we can get into some questions, but thank you very much.
Spectacular catch! Jerry Joseph looking into the corner for Coke, and it's off Phillips. What a catch! Did you see that? I'm on fire! Downfield, wide open. It's the record for G. Roy Simon. Up to the end zone, has a man. Touchdown! Evans, a man to beat.